hour together.
Really?
Last time you let me go 2 hours and your people were like biting their nails.
I know. I know. Yeah. Well, you know, what is time to a stoner, huh?
It's so true. Tommy Chong is here, folks, on Comic Spot. This is the 3rd hour. He's graced me with his presence, and it makes me want to cry. Because it does. You're so humble, Tommy. How do you manage to get through all you've gone through and accomplish and be humble? What's up?
Well, I got a wife that's very honest. Even when she's trying to be, you know, spare my feelings, I understand. No, you know, the truth is, I've had such a incredible life, you know, that just telling the truth is enough. And I love the fact that truth is so easy to remember. You know, the lies are the ones that are hard to remember, because you know you meet, you know, like sometimes you meet people and you fake like you know them. You know, and sometimes you get caught in that lie because they might mention something just to test you, and you find out, oh, I don't know these people. So I try to be as honest as I possibly can, because I just find it more interesting. You know, I found out that being a comedian, you know, this lockdown really helps. It doesn't hurt at all, because the lockdown only hurts people that are depending on other people for their employment. You know, like restaurants, bars, you know, places like that. But if you're a writer and or a comedian, which I am, then everything you do, you can turn it into a bit. You know, no matter how stupid it is. In fact, the stupider the better.
Where do you get your inspiration for all you've written? Where does it come from?
It's a very, it's very spiritual. It's a very spiritual. I know God has a sense of humor. I mean, incredible. I mean, that. How else can you explain Trump?
Totally true. Oh my gosh. I remember when Trump was a verb.
Yeah. He still is now. He's not a very good one.
Past tense.
Trumpism now. And the thing is, I came to the realization, it's kind of cold-blooded, but I came to the realization that we needed a Trump, because, you know, the sewer was getting too clogged, you know, it wasn't draining. And so Mr. Rotor-Rooter, you know, he's perfect. He's perfect because we never really knew who the swamp critters were, you know, and now we do. That's right. They all wear that red hat, you know, and if they're in Congress or the Senate, they always you know, lie. They always got their mouth going, you know. They're always hateful. They're always prejudiced. They're always trying to you know, hurt Black people, or trying to keep Mexicans, you know, out of their own country. Do you realize that Texas, California, it was all Mexico at one time?
Yes.
You know, and there should be a sort of a grandfather clause. Well, actually, take it back further. The Native Americans, you know, they were the very first. Now, I've been studying the Native, the Indian Wars are called. And, you know, when they said Afghanistan was the longest war, no. The war between the government and the Native population, you know, the Sioux, the Cheyenne, the Navajo, that war went on for 60 years.
Jeez.
And the only way the American government won was by being really dirty and playing nasty. And what they would do, the American government, the army, would commit genocide on women and children in the Indian camps. You know, instead of fighting the warriors, they would attack the village, and they'd be unarmed people. Now that conduct is totally against all rules of combat.
Yeah.
You know, and if you're in Europe, I mean, seriously, there was a lot of war crimes that were committed
A lot.
in the genocide with the natives. Now, on the other hand, I understand that that was the only way the United States government was going to defeat these people. And if you look at Afghanistan, the reason we haven't won a war overseas is because we're going into native territory.
Yeah.
You know, instead of taking their land and living there, we came in there with an army thinking that we could somehow defeat everybody there, and then what? We never had a plan. All we were looking for is a fight. All we were looking for is people to try out our newfangled weapons on, you know, and like you take the Second World War. Now that atomic bomb really should have been dropped on Hitler, but it wasn't.
Right on him.
Yeah, it wasn't. And the reason is because the Germans looked too much like Americans. You know,
Wow.
white people were attacking white people. Now, Japan, no problem. Not only drop one, we'll drop 3 atomic bombs or 2. I forget how many they dropped. I think they dropped 2. Nagasaki and Hiroshima.
Yeah.
Yeah. So because they were brown people. And for some reason, if you're brown or black, open season on you because you're not really considered human. But if you're white, like Germans did that. So it's a sad history, but we're muddling our way through it. And it's, and all the bad that happened created all the good that's happening now.
That's right.
Because it was the wars and the disgusting wars like the Civil War that created morphine and medicine that would help cut off people's arms and legs without them screaming in pain. And so every war has its good side, you know. And it's not always, you know, like even the Second World War, you know, if you look at the people that were involved in that war, those wars, they're one of the strongest economies on earth. Japan,
right.
Japan and China. I mean, Japan and Germany, and China. Look at China. China's so advanced in so many ways, and our biggest trading partner. So you know, like peaceniks, a lot of peaceniks, they like to think that remember the Second World War was supposed to be the war to end all wars. There will never be another war like this. Because why? Because we got the atomic bomb, and we could. And since then, how many wars? There's been a war every year that I can remember.
Totally.
I was born in 1938. And there's been a war every year. I can't remember when a time when there wasn't war on this. And the reason is that we live in a physical universe, you see. And that's what, when you look at the stars, the little twinkling little stars, that's huge galaxies and suns that are exploding and creating all sorts of fire and brimstone and all that good stuff, because we are in a physical universe, and there will always be violence because that's how you learn. Wow. You know, you don't learn during peace. What do you learn during peacetime? You write poems, songs, you create art, but for a brief period of time, and then turn around, there's another war going on. So I understand that. And what I really come to believe now is that it's this physical world is created for uh, 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 for us spirits. Now, our spiritual self has always been here. There's never been a time when we weren't here. And it's written in all the holy books and the Bible, you know, the eternal being, forever and ever, amen, in the prayer. So if we've always been here, you know, so why are we here? Well, we're here to learn. We're here to learn. And you can only learn in the physical world. You can't learn anything in the spiritual world, you know, because everything is spirit. And there's no want, need, or desire in the spiritual world.
Whoa.
You know?
That's
There's
trippy.
None. But there's none. There's none. There's only love. There's only
Wow.
love. And the thrill of existence. You see, all this wondrous universe would not exist if it wasn't for humans beholding it. You know, it's just like an artist. If there wasn't art lovers, there would be no need for art. You know, and so all this beauty and drama and chaos and all that stuff that goes on, it's here for us to learn, to develop, to change. Because you take the sun, for instance, the sun, it puts off the energy of, I don't know, 1,000,000 or trillion atomic bombs going off at the same time. And yet even though the universe is eternal, the sun has a life. You know, there's going to be a time when that sun is dead. It dies, runs out of fuel. But there's other suns that, you know, the son of the sons, the offspring. And so that's what I've learned. And I can only, you know, share this with people like you that are interested, is that because we are eternal beings and because we're here to learn, the only thing we take with us is our reputation, our integrity. That's the only thing we take.
Will you please talk about integrity? Because so many people in show business lack it.
Well, everybody, you know, it's like swimming in the pool. You know, if you know how to swim, you can go anywhere. And knowing how to swim is just having faith. See, integrity, another word for integrity is faith.
Wow.
Because if you have faith in everything that you do, that if you do the right thing. Now, we've been showing this. Every Bible on earth, be it the Quran, be it the Old Testament, the Torah, wherever, all the holy books, they all pay homage to God. That's one thing they all agree on, God. That's one thing. When you go to court, you swear in the Bible, you're swearing to God. So God really exists because we are evidence of that existence. We are children of God. That's what the Christian Bible likes to tell us. You know, we are all children of God. Now, if you read the Ten Commandments and the scriptures, they all say there is only one God. You shall have no gods before me. Yet the Christians declared Jesus as a God. Even though Jesus himself said, I am not God, I am the Son of God. We all are the sons of God. We are the Son. I'm not God. We are the Son of God. And But yet the Romans and the high priest, when they murdered and tortured Jesus, they wanted him to admit, or to, if you're God, perform a godlike, escape from that, come off that cross. And as much as Jesus would have liked to have done that, because that had to be very uncomfortable, especially after being flogged near death, there had to be so much pain that Jesus was going through. And I'm quite sure that if Jesus had that, if he had that power, he wouldn't have been up on that cross. They wouldn't have been able to torture him, because anything that God made is perfect, and you can't destroy it. But what Jesus proved to us was that, like when Christians say he died for our sins. No, he didn't die for our sins. He died because of our sins.
Wow.
He died because the high priest wanted to get him out of the way, because the Romans wanted to show the people, that how powerful they were, is that they could kill the Christian God with no problem. Not only kill him, but we could torture him. We could have him strung up forever. And Jesus, even though he was up there, he kept telling everybody, you have to forgive. Can you imagine being tortured like that? And he's saying, I forgive you. I forgive you. Why? Because he was so evolved. Now, if Jesus was anything, and he was a prophet, he lived here, and he taught, and he created, no, he didn't create it, but they created this gigantic religion around him. Mm-hmm. But for sure, he definitely was spiritually evolved.
Yes.
To the point that, he said he'd come back. Well, he never really left.
Wow.
And he said his words, even long after he's gone, his words will always be here. That's so true. Because you see what I'm saying? His words, but you can't misinterpret them. And that's what's happening, and that's why, if the Catholic Church, if the Pope and the Catholic Church and everybody were who they claimed to be, there would be no pedophiles in the Catholic Church.
Thank you.
There would be no thieves stealing artwork from the Vatican. There would be no Vatican. There would be no artwork. There would, you know what I mean? Like Jesus taught, you don't have to go to a temple to worship God. Where you stand is holy ground. We're standing on holy ground. Now, on the other hand, just the slightest belief in God will do wonders for you.
Yes.
We'll create miracles, because you don't have to be, like they say, the priests, that go around being holy every day. All you have to do is, this is what I tell people too, when asked, you can't have two thoughts in your head at the same time. It's impossible. So if your mind is constantly on God, then you are standing on holy ground, and everything that concerns you, he will take care of. Now that line right there explains me.
Wow.
Because I came from, I couldn't make it through high school. I tried twice, and I got as far as grade 11. And then I realized that what I needed to learn, they weren't teaching me anything like that in school. What they were doing, they were teaching me really how to exist in this world through manual labor, basically, or business, because the greatest thing about our system of government is that if you've got a good idea, you can, well, look at me. Here I am.
Yes.
Yeah. But what happened to me, I was turned on to the power to the God power really, really early in my life. And it always stuck with me. The most important thing I learned how to do is pray.
Yeah. It's
If
so, some people find it boring, but in the quiet comes the peace.
I know it's funny, the boring, because they don't know how to pray. They don't know how easy it is.
Talk
All
about
you,
how easy it is to pray and what you've learned. That's so interesting to me. I want to hear you.
okay. Paul said in one of his sermons that he prays without ceasing. And the way you do that, no energy at all. You just keep God on your mind. The thought, that's what I'm telling you, but you can't have two thoughts in your mind at the same time. So I always include God in my thoughts. When I'm thinking, I think of God. I think of God, and I thank God, because I use God every day. Not just thank him for some esoteric thing that might have happened. I like when you bless a meal, for instance. That's the best thing anybody could do. When you say grace, that's so good. When you say your prayers before you go to bed, that's incredible. When you think of God when you wake up, that's incredible. Always, all that stuff is incredible. Why? Because once you have a God consciousness, then when someone drops something, your first thought is to find them and give it back to them. It's not to keep it. It's to find the owner, or if not, just leave it. Don't touch it. Just leave it. Why? Because you're taught in Sunday school or parents or church or whatever, is that or the Bible. I love the Bible, because the Bible says that whatever belongs to you will come to you. And if it doesn't belong to you, you will lose it. It doesn't belong to you. It's like a pet, if that, no, that's a bad one. It's like, well, anything that really, like wealth, for instance. If you have done the right things to create wealth, no matter what happens to you, you will obtain wealth. It will happen. That's what a lot of the preachers teach.
Yes.
The positive thinking of how to acquire wealth, and the way you do that is that the best way to do that is have your mind on God. Ask God, what should I do? And the answers appears. There's an old saying says that when the student is ready, the teacher appears. But you have to be ready. You see, you have to be ready for wealth. There's a lot of, say, athletes, say they're really good at playing football or something, but when it comes to wealth, they don't know how to handle it, and so they will. But there again, if they're connected, then the right person will appear and help them out. Now, if you're stealing, it works the opposite. No matter what you steal, how careful you do it, you will lose it because it's not yours. And that's why it's so dangerous to gamble.
Wow.
Because when you gamble, you are really flaunting God in a sense that you think that you can get something for nothing. Now, gambling for skill and for fun, and if you take the money and you do something good with it, I can't see any harm in that, because life is a gamble.
True.
I once when I was in prison, I asked an old con artist that had been in prison many times. I says, teach me how to do time. You've been in jail many times. How do you do time? How do you do jail time? He says, you play games. You play games. You play cards. You play pool. You play baseball. Play whatever you can. Flipping coins, anything. Play games. Well, yeah, That's true. That's so much fun. And there's a holy book called the I Ching. I don't know if you heard it, but anyway, it's a book of changes, and it was written 5,000 years ago by a Chinese man. Was it King Wen was his name? Anyway, the book of changes. I just did it the other day, and you throw coins. It's like flipping a coin, and what you do, you throw 3 coins, and then you write down. Each time you throw it, you write down heads, tails, or tails, 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 or heads, tails, heads. You write down the sequence, and the tails are 2 points, and the heads 3 points. And then at the end, you do it 6 times, and at the end of the 6 times, you add up your number, and then it refers you to the book.
Wow.
Of where your fortune is, but basically it tells your fortune. And I did it many years ago when I first started out, and it said that it came up perfect. My life, and this is way back, way before Cheech, way before anybody, and as you see, it kind of came to perfect. Now, the one I did just recently, it says a couple of things. It said one thing that I was using the helpers. Now, in the I Ching, helpers are considered angels. Like I always lose my phone, and so I'll say, God, help me find my phone, and the phone appears. Every time, without fail. If I can't remember a name or something, I'll ask God. And these are helpers, and because we all are of God. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
We all are of God. Like a lot of people, they feel that their vision of God is some, like the Michelangelo's painting. The old guy with the beard, and he's touching things with man on earth,
Yes.
And because back in the day, the patriarch was the everything, and the older you got, the more godlike, I guess, you looked and acted. But God is spirit. God is a lot of things, but God is spirit, and God is love, and God is truth. And there's so many things that God is, and we're here to enjoy God's works. You see, we're beholders. Now, not all of us are blessed with that. That it's like a monk, or a Japanese monk, or some holy man. Well, you take Buddha. Buddha was touched, you see, and he ended up being the leader of a huge number of people, because it was just his way of life and what he saw. And he saw that this earth of ours that's the illusion. The reality is the spirit world. That's the real world. This, what we're living in, and you got to admit, like Shakespeare once said, the world's a stage, and we're all actors. Now, I was really freaked out, because I thought, wow, Shakespeare was really, really spiritual. And then I read the rest of it. He didn't mean it in the way that I'm doing it. I mean it. He meant it in a sort of like a Shakespearean way, But when he said that we're all actors, and with all the books and the spiritual books that I read, I said, yeah, that's true. Because every time we come back to Earth, we're in a different role. We're playing a different role. We're playing a different character, one. And the thing is, people say, do you believe in evolution? No, not evolution, reincarnation. Do you believe in reincarnation? I said, of course. because there's so many reasons to believe in reincarnation. For instance, the Tibetan Dalai Lama. Now, what they do when the Dalai Lama dies, they take the trinkets or whatever he played with as a kid, and they go around and they test all the little kids in the village to find out how he came back, because he's going to come back. And sure enough, the little kid reaches out, grabs him. Oh, here he is. Here's the next Dalai Lama. And that's with us. Why would the Dalai Lama be the only one on Earth that gets reincarnated? When every one of us, it only makes sense, because we're only here for a brief period of time. Even if you live to be 100, you're only here for what, 90. Oh, I got to take it back. There are people that are 100 that are still pretty viable. but like in the Bible, it used to say, Methuselah lived to be 800 years old. And there's a whole section where they used to live to be longer. I kind of believe it.
I do too.
Yeah, I believe it because of the health and the wealth. When Jesus walked the earth, he talked about mansions. He said, there are many mansions in my Father's house. Now, I thought about that. I thought, damn, everybody gets this feeling that because Jesus was here, a couple of thousand years ago, that there weren't really wealthy people back then, that everybody walked around on barefoot and rode a donkey. No, there were so many wealthy people. And it's been like that since the beginning of time. It's just that certain literature, that they appeal to different class of people and different, the stories, like the Bible, for instance. If you read the Bible verbatim, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. You got to remember, the Bible was written, first of all the holy books were never written, never written, not until they really discovered ways to write. Everything was verbal. You told the story, and they did it in verse, like the Bhagavad Gita, 30,000 years old, wasn't written. It was recited. It was recited, and that's how they did it back in the day, and that's how the holy people did it. Now we got, but in the writings of all the Bible, they're written by writers. Writers tend to exaggerate. That's why you get David and Goliath, for instance. That could have happened, but it sounds much better if it happened to David.
Totally.
This little gay guy took down this giant with a rock, a single rock. You see. So what I'm celebrating is the fact that we're only here temporarily. And the best thing you can do for yourself and for others is to help others. Be helpful. Now, I'll tell you this story that happened to me, and I think it was a turning point in my life.
Okay.
I really do. Because I never went to high school, and the thing is, in Canada, especially Calgary, and with my family, okay, you don't go to school, you're definitely going to work. Because I grew up close enough to farm country, that once you got big enough to carry something, that then you got a job. You're bringing in the wood, taking out the slop field, bringing in the water. That's what little kids do. You work. And there's and if a neighbor needed help, you went and helped them. And with me, I got all my jobs because I loved helping people, especially I love being asked. And so if I had a friend, he was delivering meat and he had to quit his job for some reason. And he asked me, he says, would I do him a favor? I said, sure. He said, would you take over my job delivering meat from the meat market? And I said, sure, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll do it. I loved that job. It was, and I'll tell you why I loved the job so much. Now, one of my jobs, I had to wash all the grinders and everything else. That was tough because it was very sharp blades and that, and we didn't have gloves, and so I used to, and that's why they had me wash it. Let the kid wash it, but they would the people that owned the meat market. They were, I think they were some kind maybe Hungarian, because they made the best sausage.
Wow.
Oh my God. There's store-bought sausage. Okay. When you get homemade sausage, what they do, they don't use just crappy meat, fat and everything else. They use the best meat you can buy. And then they spack it with herbs and spices and everything else, and they cook it up. I brought that sausage home, and my dad, who really was a foodie, he loved his food. He died and went to heaven. he took a bite of that sausage, and oh my God. Oh, and it was just a treat, for Christmas. But I had, because my friend asked me to do him a favor, that's how I got a job. And then I always had a job working. And then I started playing music. Again, it was to help a friend. He was a fiddle player. I started backing up his fiddle, with my guitar playing when I was 8, 9 years old. And then as I grew up, then we played for parties. So I was like a professional musician from the time I was 8, 9 years old, playing for parties. And when you play for a party, you play for an hour or so, and then take a little break, and then play for another hour or so, take another break, play for a third hour, because the party would go on for as long as we played music, and we're in the country and there's no reason why we couldn't play. And so I learned how to play professionally, because you can't stop. You can't practice your scales and then say, okay, that's enough, Mom. Can I go play now? No, you play. There's 3 hours of playing. And so I got to be able to play the guitar pretty good, backup especially. And so then we put a band together. It's another long, beautiful story, but I got a band, black guys in it and everything. And we're playing at the Calgary Stampede outdoors. And I don't know how we got it. Again, I'm very connected. So things happen. We got a flatbed truck. We put our stuff on it. We played music. A friend of ours went around, collected money. We all had a wad of money that thick, hundreds of dollars, just bulging out of my pocket. And so we just finished playing about 3-hour gig, walking home to the bus, ready to catch the bus to go home. And I hear a voice, sir, mister, can you help me? And I turned around, there was this, like a homeless guy, He says, I thought he needed money. So I said, sure, here, what do you need? He said, no, I don't need money. He says, I need help. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, I got hired to empty this boxcar, and I can't do it myself. And if I don't have it emptied by morning, I'm not going to get paid. And I really need the money. So I said, oh, sure, I'll help you. So now this is midnight. And so I walked to the bus, to the boxcar with him. And it's an empty boxcar, but it had remnants of coal on the bottom, which you couldn't bring up by machine. You had to do it by hand. We spent, I don't know how many hours early, it got late into the morning, emptying this boxcar of coal. When I got home around noon, I was black with coal dust. My mother, what the hell happened to you? I told her the story, had a bath, went to bed. Oh, and the thing was, after we finished loading the boxcar, the guy goes, I can't pay you because until I get paid. So I said, don't worry about it. I thought that would be the last I'd ever see of the guy. Sure enough, he showed up with my little my little bit of, well, I think it was $15 or something, $20 or something, some ridiculous little amount. But you see, that was a test. That was the test, and I passed it because all I could think about in my head was he needs help. That's all I could think about. I never thought about myself. And from that moment on, I would say I was blessed. Probably before that, but that definitely was a test. And I passed that test. And I've been passing tests like that my whole life because I know, thanks to, Bible study and thanks to Bible camp. I went to Bible camp when I was 8 years old, and I won the best kid award and best boy, the nicest boy. and I was with my brother. My brother never even made the fun. He never even got an honorable mention because he was. The older boys, they would just take off and go play their own thing. Me, I would go to every Bible study there was. And I loved the stories. I loved all that. I loved everything because I knew instinctively that I was special. I knew it. I knew it. I knew it all my life. My mother told me that too. My mother, because she kept a big secret from me.
What you know that? No, what you
I can't believe it. I just found out not too long ago. My mother married my dad, who was full Chinese. And that was a big, thing in those days. 1936. She's walking down the street with a little short Chinese guy. She was 5'8", he was 5'3", and but tough as nails. My dad was an athlete, very tough, and he was a World War II vet too. He joined the army when he didn't have to. He was Chinese. He could have stayed out and made a fortune, but his whole thing wasn't fortune. His whole thing was being married to a beautiful woman like my mother. Now, on my mother's side, we knew my dad was Chinese, but on my mother's side, they always told us that they were Scotch Irish because she was a Gilchrist and her grandmother was a Dillon. But what they didn't tell us was that my grandmother married a Dillon.
What?
My grandmother was half Native.
Wow.
That was not her grandma. I always get this mixed up. Her father was Irish, but her mother, my grandmother's mother, was full-blood Native. And so my grandmother turned out to be who committed suicide when my mother was 3. Really? Yeah. So I never knew my grandmother, but she was half Native, born on a reservation in northern Manitoba. And it's a little town called Maffican, Manitoba. And I put out the word on the internet that my grandmother's from Maffican, and I got all these great letters in that from Maffican, Manitoba. And but anyway, that was the big secret of the family because my mother was part of I think there was 8 kids, maybe more, 4 boys, 4 girls. I think it was that because we had Aunt Lily, Annabelle, Jessie, Irene, and my mother. There was 5 girls, and Will, Kit, Kit, Will. So yeah, so there were about seven. Anyway, it was a big secret. Now my mother and some of her relatives, my one aunt, uh, Isabel. Well, they were so homophobic, or not homophobic, racist back in the day.
Sure.
You know, that was
You were.
what we were fighting. You know, people because of racism, and so it was very dangerous to be Japanese. You know, in
Yes.
fact, you got put in a internment camp, and you couldn't. You know, Germans, same thing. You know, although you're white, you get away with it. But my mother, I just found that out with the DNA test. Now, when I started dating black girls, my dad, when I brought a black girl home the first time, she was my dance partner. I ended up being a good dancer, Lindy Hop, you know, and so I brought her home, and it was my dance partner. She wasn't a girlfriend, but she was my dance partner. My dad calls me in the kitchen, and he goes, "Son, she's black." And I said, "Pop, you're Chinese." Of course, he ended up loving her, and then my first wife was black, is black, Maxine, you know, and my parents loved her to death, and so it didn't take long. But my whole family now, my son, he married a Indonesian girl who was half Afghanistan and half something else, Iraqi or something like that. Oh yeah, and so we got grandkids now. They're all different colors, and then my two daughters with my oldest, my first marriage, Ray Dawn Chong and Robbie Chong. Ray Dawn's a famous actress, and Robbie was a famous model, and they're in L.A. too. And Ray Dawn, my daughter Ray Dawn, she had a son, Morgan, and Morgan had two kids, so I got two great grandkids, and so we got a rainbow coalition in our house, and we get together now. It's so much fun because
it's like the United Nations.
It is the United Nations for sure.
You get the Nobel Peace Prize when you have a meeting.
I should get. I don't know what I'm going to get. You know, it's incredible. Well, what I got is so much love and so much joy. You know, with my kids, my family. That was the other thing I learned. You know, because if you're not greedy, your needs will be taken care of to the point where that's why you give grace. You keep thanking God because you get so many blessings, you know, and all you have to do is, like the doctor, do no harm and help others. That's all you got to do. That's
so easy.
Yeah. And you would think it's easy. And the thing is, the scriptures always teach you, you know, if you got, don't pray if you got harboring some grudge against anybody. I was on the Turk show one time, and they're sort of anti-Trump, you know. And so they said, what do you think should happen to Trump? I said, you mean after this when he was in office? I says, you mean when he's out of office? Yeah, what do you think should happen to Trump? I says, I think we should just forgive him.
Wow.
And the Turk looked at me and said, forgive him? How can you say that when he's in? I says, it's not so much for Trump. You're not going to help Trump. It's for us. So we don't carry that memory, that scab, that poison around with us. You forgive and forget, and that it frees you. You know, you don't have to hang on to, you know, like Hitler. You know, and that's what the Republicans are trying to do now. They're trying to find someone to hate, someone to blame. You know, the I Ching, when you do the I Ching, it always says no blame, because everything happens for a reason. And so there's no reason to blame anybody.
Wow.
including Trump,
Wow.
including like these sexual predators, like Weinstein and Cosby and all those guys. I was really happy when Bill Cosby got out of jail, and my son said, "Don't you dare tweet this." I never, but I'll tell you, I've known Bill, and by the way, Bill kind of hit on my daughter in the same
Wow.
fashion. Yeah, but
Whoa.
but it's not Bill's problem. I mean, it's that it's obviously a chemical problem, and um, it's it's yeah, it's just pure ignorance, and it's also a form of self destruction.
It is.
These guys, it's a form of self destruction. Like people, they could never hurt themselves, but they could do things to make other people put them in jail, for instance. You know,
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, it's a coward's way out. You know, but you have to understand you can't blame like Weinstein. Yeah, Harvey Weinstein. He did all these great movies, got all these Academy Awards, and all of a sudden, and then you find out that he was torturing all these young ladies. Using what they needed against him. To get what he thought he needed. But I figured out their problem: excessive testosterone.
Wow.
Think about it. If they got checked by a medical professional and then went in and apologized and everything else and said, listen, this is why this is happening. Excessive testosterone, because for a while there I was taking testosterone shots, again, to fix my libido,
Yes.
and it just went right to my head, and I was almost like uncontrollable for a while, but because I've had cancer and physically I can't perform, I had to come to grips with that. But then I realized, oh, that's their problem, you know, because their reputations are ruined now.
Yes.
They'll never repair that. Like Woody Allen, he'll never. I don't think we'll ever see a Woody Allen movie again.
And
You
it's
know,
such a shame because like they do their time, they admit they did it, they go to get help, and then we hold it against them for the rest of their lives.
you do, and that's the problem. See, but now you get a feeling of what it's like to be black, what it's
Yes.
like to be brown, like what it's like to be a woman. You know, you carry that with you to your grave because of ignorance. But there again, you see, that's another chance to learn something. You see, that's what it is. And by the way, I don't think hell exists the way they depict it in the art, because of one thing: hell has fire and brimstone, and in order to have fire you have to have a physical world.
Whoa.
That can only happen in a physical world, because in a spiritual world there's no substance except love. And so if any of them went to the physical world, I mean to the spiritual world, all they would find, they would be immersed in love. Now, I do believe that when you sin,
Uh-huh.
like Trump and all those,
Yeah.
I really do believe that you are born right back. When you die, you come right back, and it can't be pleasant. You know what I
Yes.
mean? You
Yes.
come back to learn to suffer, to learn how to suffer. That's what you learn. And not to say that everybody that's poor, because we all, when we're born, we all have a shot, no matter where you are. Like myself, I don't remember my mother. uh I remember there was one little thing we were doing. I guess I was walking. Yeah, oh yeah, I had to be around two, I guess. 2 years old. My dad was in the training camp in Nova Scotia, and my mother dressed us up like little soldiers, and she was really artistic, and she took us to Nova Scotia. Well, in Nova Scotia, now I was in a crib. I was sleeping in a crib, even though I was dressed up like the little guy. So I was walking, but I was still sleeping in a crib, because I remember my dad coming home was my mother told me the story, so I have memories of her telling me that these drunken soldiers came in and they wanted to see the baby, and one of them was smoking a cigar, and the ash of the cigar fell off and fell into my night clothes, and I started screaming like crazy. And my mother, of course, she threw everybody out of the place and picked me up and brushed all the burn off me, all the hurt off me. And I also remember where kids were drawing something, and I remember that I liked the Kotex box, and so I copied that almost perfectly. And I remember my mother and her girlfriend, or my aunt. I just remember them having their big laugh over it. Oh my God, look what he's doing, that kind of thing. But my mother ended up she got TB, tuberculosis. And so then around the same time I got pleurisy. And so they checked the whole family for TB, and they found out that I had pleurisy. So I went to the general hospital, and my mother went into the sanitarium. And so I was in the general hospital for almost a year, I guess. And then I got better. They shot me full of penicillin and some other drugs, and I got better. And I was taken from the hospital by my dad to an orphanage, the Salvation Army home, because my dad, he couldn't, he had nowhere to handle the kids. He just got out of from overseas.
Yeah.
And so my brother, myself, and my sister, we were all in the home for almost a year, I guess. And then my dad finally got it together, bought a home, a little shack. You talk about native. No,
it was like $500, right?
Yeah, that's it. So I told you that story.
No, I read about it on the internet.
Oh, yeah. It was a $500 house. Yeah. And that's where my memories, that's all my memories start coming. That's when I remember, going to school, because I was a year behind everybody. I was 7 when everybody else was in 7 in grade 1. And then that's the way it went all my life. But but the only thing we had to do, back in the country, only reason we got dressed up was to go to church, go to Sunday school. And so I really enjoyed Sunday school. I loved it. I loved the stories. I loved the stories about Jesus. I loved all the Bible stories, kids stories. They were so great. And that's why I've got what I've got now.
And I've talked to a lot of people about you, and nobody has anything negative to say about you. That is a miracle. A miracle.
Yeah, I could think. My wife could come up with a few things. She told me, you need a haircut. Well, my daughter saw me the other day, and we're shooting a movie with her, a documentary, and she needs some more scenes from me. She says, "Oh, Dad, you got your hair long. Good, keep it long. Don't cut it. And so I have to. I tried to explain to my wife that I need my hair for the movie. She's not that happy. Well, she's the artist of the family, so she likes me looking good. But it's okay.
I want to talk about your dad. He was in World War II, and my parents, they went through the Holocaust over there in Germany.
Oh, wow.
And I lost all my relatives except my dad, mom, and my mom's parents because of Hitler. And my dad wouldn't let me ever say anything negative about Hitler. So what did your dad do during the war over in Europe?
He was an artilleryman. He was in the Canadian artillery. He saw action in Italy. He saw action. I think, he never wanted to talk about it. He would never talk about the fighting and what he went through there, because you want to forget.
Yes.
You don't want to remember it. But I'm a big war buff, and I watch all the movies and the Holocaust, and I'm fascinated with World War II.
Me too.
Because I believe that I'm reincarnated from that era. I really I feel, because I know I have native blood in me, but I'm really connected. I was in Army cadets too, so I really learned the military lifestyle. In fact, I had a choice, of joining the Army or joining a band. I took the band. I went the band route, orchestra route. Hey, come here. Oh, that stupid dog.
In the 60s, our man went to Canada and you came to America.
Yeah. Well, the whole war, it was to show us. Well, first of all, we are eternal beings. And so everybody that was lost in the Holocaust, they're here. They're somewhere.
They're with us.
No. And that's the way it is. It could have been me. Maybe I was one of them, that reincarnated as who I am. Because it's impossible. Every drop of water that was on Earth when Earth was formed is still here.
Wow.
And we're 90% water. And so physically, we're just, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. And so, the Holocaust was a lesson. It was a very, very deep lesson for everybody. Everybody connected to it, because it brought out the evil, and it brought out so many things in human nature.
And good came out of it.
Always, good always comes out of it. You can't have one without the other. There's no such thing as up without down. There's no such thing as good without bad. Because, the spiritual world is good, period. That's it. Right. End of story. Yeah, because no want, need, or desire. There you go. And the thing is, when we talk about religion, especially Christianity, the Christians forget that Jesus was born a Jew, lived a Jew, and died a Jew. There was never a time in his life where he was ever a Christian. And if he knew that they were going to reincarnate, reconstruct the way he was tortured and murdered, I think he would have to say, how about the one with me holding the lamb? I like that. I like that image better. It's so crazy. It's so crazy because, and the thing is, it was the Jews that started this whole one God thing.
Yeah, that's right.
It was the ones, the shepherds. They're looking up at the sky and they figured it out. There's something, and with inside them too. That's why the Bible is always referring to shepherds and to the flocks in the way they take care of their sheep, and not in a negative term the way they got it now.
Thank you.
Where the sheep, a bunch of sheep. Look at those sheep. Look what they did. They provided us clothes. They provide us food. They provide us warmth. They provide everything, you know. And where are they? It's a gift. It's a gift from God. You know, we're all a gift. Everything's a gift from God, and it's our free will.
Yeah.
Oh shit. Okay, it's okay. I'm declining it. I know how to work that thing now.
Is there anything you have not been able to accomplish that you must accomplish? And how do you want to be remembered?
Well, listen. No, oh yeah, there is something. There is something. I want to become the wealthiest man in the world because I know what to do with money.
Wow.
I really do. And what you do with money, you find a way to give it to poor people.
Aww.
Why? Because poor people, they don't hoard, they spend. And when you spend money, you create jobs. And when you create jobs, you create societies. And when you create societies, you got it. You got it. Now, I've got a plan because here's what I think. There was only one organization that had a chance of creating a perfect world. That's the movie industry.
Wow.
Because the movie industry came very, very, very close, but greed took over. And once greed takes over, then everything will disintegrate eventually, you know, because everything's being done, you know, you lose it. You don't use it, you lose it. So my plan, my long range plan, short range, whatever, is to create a movie company that with $1 trillion budget. I'll keep it low. I'll keep it $1 trillion budget. Now, look how much money we spent in Afghanistan, and we just basically blew it away, threw it away, just burned it up. We created nothing except more chaos. Now, I mean, yeah, there's people that they learned that America is not a bad place to go to if you lose a war, and so we got 100,000 people or so extra here, but that's okay. Because my plan is this. You use a movie company and you hire, say, the migrants that are coming from South America. But they have to be vetted. They have to, in order to come into America, they have to be part of our movie company. They have to be an employee of our movie company. Now, when you get anything to do with movies, you have to be vetted by the casting people. And the casting people, like if you wanted to use an actor from Mexico, for instance, the casting people have lawyers to get the right work permit. And then once you get them in here, they have to join the unions. So they get health insurance and they get all that good stuff. You have to give them schooling if they don't have schooling, and you have to provide employment and a place to stay, a place to live. In the meantime, and you're paying for this with the movie budget. And so what I want to do is shoot a movie of the migrants coming to America with the real migrants. Wow. And using the movie company to hire them all, and then use the art department to build houses for them, because that's what they did back in the day. Wow. If you go down Los Angeles, if you go down the way, Hollywood Way, I think it was. Anyway, in near Burbank, you'll see these beautiful little homes with little fireplaces, and they're like little English cottages. Well, that's what the art department built for the workers that worked on the animation with Disney. and there's a whole community. Now you can't buy, they never go up for sale because whoever owns them, they just pass them down to their relatives. They're so beautiful. Well, I want the art department to build villages for the migrants that come, and so the migrants are going to, while they're here, and I figure 10, 20-year thing, they can re-up if they want, or re-out if they want. But I think 10 years is a good enough time for them to figure out if they want to stay in the movie business or if they want to pursue something else. But anyway, that's my plan for the homeless as well, because what I want to do with the homeless, again, hire them all on the movie. Now they can stay in the tent while we're shooting, but after we're shooting, they go home to a decent. Now if they need help, because this is the other thing I'm going to do with the budget, is to create not hospitals so much as rehab centers, because I think rather than mental homes, I think a lot of problems would be solved with rehab, but kind of rehab where you're incarcerated, where you can't leave unless you're cured, or it's a voluntary thing. And if you need psychiatric help, we provide all that for people. We provide a health thing. When they legalized marijuana medically, I thought that was the most brilliant thing ever, because if you want to smoke pot, you have to get a doctor's permission, and I love that. Even though if it was bogus, because you still had to get up to go into the doctor's office and say, and he can look at you, and if you're not physically able to do that, then you shouldn't be smoking weed.
Yeah.
So what I want to do is use what we already have, what we have already. And the movie company, to me, is the best, because they did it back in the early days, the 30s, 40s, when they first started movies, with child actors. They had laws where they can only work them but they got them today. You can only work them so much. They have to go to school. They have to be healthy. They have to have a parent, guardian, blah, blah, blah. You have to have all that. Well, that's what we need now, you see. And if we turn everything that's happening, and by the way, that's what happened on January the 6th. Trump thinks he's in a movie. He was trained to be in a movie with the Apprentice. That's his only training he's ever had. He has no idea of how to run a country or politics or anything else, but he knows how to act. He knows how to camera. And when they say cut, you stop acting. He knows those things. He knows all the movie things. And so what he did with his insurrection, he treated it like it was being shot by a movie cameras. And by the way, they were. Everybody had their own phone and everybody recorded it. There's more footage of the insurrection than there is of World War II, because everybody had a phone. Everybody recorded themselves committing these crimes, and including Trump. And so you see the power of movies, you see. And so the good thing I liked about the old-fashioned movies is they had a moral code. And with that moral code, you couldn't see, if they weren't married, you couldn't see them in bed together. Right. All those things, Now, it's a little Puritan right now, but it's not a bad idea to show people how to govern a country through a movie.
Absolutely.
You can show people how to learn, how to go to school, show the good things. Because like with me, I just watch documentaries now. That's all. I love watching documentaries. I'll watch, my wife's got something on there, it looks interesting. I'll watch it for a while, but she usually falls asleep. And so then I end up watching my documentaries because I love real things. I love that. And so what I want to do with the movie company is basically shoot documentaries of what we're doing. You
That's
see?
going to be so interesting, and it's going to help the whole world.
That's what I'm saying. Because every country they can look at and say, oh, we can do that. We can do that. And that's how you control people by not hiring the richest guys or not hiring the lackeys of the people that are going to do that, but hiring the people that are most qualified. You see, that's the problem we had with the immigration. We don't have any people. There was no one qualified to take those kids and the migrants and separate the kids and put the kids one area. You know, there's no one qualified to even say, hold it, stop. What are you doing? You know, you don't break up families like that. You're going to create worse problems. You see,
exactly.
And so what I see with the movie approach is that and by the way, I want to be the mogul. I'm going to make myself the mogul. I'm going to have the buck stops here, you know, because when you look at the movies that really made it were the moguls that really were interested in morals, in, you know, the bad guys. You know, they had that, and that, I think that came from England. I think that whole code of conduct, it was very military and very, very English, you know. I'd have to check on it. It doesn't matter because it's coming from me now. Yeah. And then what I want to do is create a board of directors and advisors, and then include the whole movie community. And there would be enough extras and actors and everything for everybody. You know, because that's the way. That way, you're not giving welfare. You know, because everybody can work in a movie, even if you're laying on a stretcher. You know, if you want to be in the movie, you can be in. If we need people in a hospital, okay, you got it. You know, you know what I'm saying? We can create a society that is basically perfect, because that's what we want to do. Now, you're still going to have your thieves, you're still going to have all that stuff, but we'll be shooting movies about these guys, you know. And then I want to see a prison reform where we take, because I was in prison, and there's not you know the biggest problem with the prisons now?
No.
They're too nice.
What? Really?
Yes. That's why you got a lot of crime. That's why you got people taking cars and going on joyrides and being chased by other cops. That's the only way you can get in jail. It's hard to get in jail now, you know, because
true.
It's true. Very hard. In France, in that you have to make reservations to go to prison, because basically prisons, they're the perfect place for safety, because they got guards to protect you, and so you're safe. You don't have to worry about walking the street and getting mugged, or having your house robbed, or any crime like that there. You see, those crimes of you know, driving, especially driving crazy, are just guys wanting to go back to prison, because there's no life for them on the outside. Because once you got that ex-con tag on you, you're the last guy they want to hire. Although now, like Starbucks, well, and the thing is, a lot of thieves, you know, it's from taxes and from having too much money, you know, and so what you learn in prison is that you're no better than anybody else. You're sleeping and you're doing things. It used to be like that. But the prison I was in, you know, they had age exempt and that, you know. I'll tell you the truth. If I was on the street, I had a choice between the street and prison, I'd go back to prison. Wow. I would. Yeah, because it's much nicer. Much nicer. The food's better, the safety, you know, the bathrooms are, you know, you keep them clean, you know, there's a whole order. And so what we need to do is reform these kind of institutions. Hospitals, you want to call them hospitals, or I like rehab. I like rehab centers, because you're rehabbing, you know, you're rehabilitating, because that's what prisons really should be.
Yes.
And they, yeah. And so I that's what I see what society needs. Whether I get to do it or not, it doesn't matter because I'll write about it.
Yes.
I'll write a book about it. And that. But you see where I'm going with it.
Yes, I get it.
Yeah.
One of the people on Facebook wanted me to ask you a question before we're done, Tommy.
Sure.
You've performed with the 420 comic. He lives here in Vegas, Jeffrey Peterson.
Oh yeah.
Yes, and he says hello, and he says he'd love to have you talk about almost being cast in the Spirit of 76 movie.
Oh no, I was cast in it.
You were talk about that. He wants to hear you talk about it.
Well, it was kind of a, you know, I was in it for just a very, very short period. They shot it in Oakland, I believe. Yeah, Oakland. And what I remember about it is that when I went into Oakland, I felt like I was going into Africa. And they said, why? I said, because all the toll people as you come into Oakland were all black. It was like I was going through immigration into Africa. And I said that to, I think at the time, the Spirit of 76, and the publicist of that, they thought that was the most horrible thing I could have said. No. But they forget I was with Motown, you know, I'm married to a black lady. I was married to a black lady. I got black kids. I'm part of their culture.
Yes.
I was always the Chinaman. Hey, Chinaman. You know, hey, Chinaman, come over here, man. What's up, Chinaman? Yeah.
How do you get through your life without having any regrets? I don't pick up you have any regrets, and I don't pick up that you have any bitterness. How do you do that?
I as soon as I found out, as soon as I started dancing the Lindy Hop, and I got a black partner, and then I ended up in the black community. You know, with all this racial talk and you know, and George Floyd and all that, that's such a fraction of the community itself. The community itself, you know what it was all about? Dancing. It was all about party. When you had a party, you didn't sit around and talk shit about other people. You danced. You put on the music. You danced. In the hallway, you're dancing. In the street, you're dancing. Everywhere because you're learning the latest step, whatever it was. Oh yeah, you got to do the monkey. I had to learn how to do the pony. We just danced. I knew how to cha-cha way before I got on Dancing with the Stars because I was with the dancers. We just danced, and then we'd go to parties. And then when I hooked up with the salsa people, that's all we did was dance. People would drive in from Bakersfield or from Fresno just to go to a dance. So that's how you survive. You danced because we were young and we were full of energy. And when you dance and you're a good dancer, that's why I still take tango, because you're learning with tango, you're learning how to steer a gorgeous woman around the dance floor in such a way that because you get such a thrill out of it. It's better than sex.
Wow.
Because you don't, there's no time where you just, I need a cigarette, I got to go home, babe. You know, none of that. It was one dance after another dance after another dance, and you get that feeling, that beautiful feeling of this most gorgeous creature in front of you. Because when you're dancing, you're gorgeous. I don't care what you look like. When you're moving that body, and you know, and you're in rhythm, oh man, you're in one with the universe. And so that's how I did it. That's how I learned. And the thing is, music is another eternal thing. Music has always been here. Music basically enabled the Black community to survive slavery. That's how they survived slavery. I always had music. They always do you know what a Bo Diddley is? You've heard
Yes.
of a Bo Diddley? Do you know what it is?
Isn't that Bo Diddley was a person?
Yeah, but he was named after. You know what a Bo Diddley he was named after?
No.
It's a piece of wire nailed to a barn, strung across, and nailed to another part with a bridge in between. And then the African slaves used to play that as a string instrument. Down, 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 down. It gave that sound, and that's a Bo Diddley. See, the African slaves made music out of whatever they could find. In fact, salsa came from the meetings at night of the slaves, the Black slaves, and the Spanish workers or slaves at the time. They would get together after working in the fields, and the Blacks would have their drums, and the Spanish would have their guitars and their horns, and that's where we got salsa from. Yeah.
So
Salsa.
are you suggesting, Tommy Chong, are you suggesting that if people have things that have bothered them, they can rid themselves of it through enjoying art, music, laughter? It seems
Dance.
like that's dance.
Salsa is one of the best cures for heartbreak that I know of.
Really?
Oh, for sure. Because I know we used to go to a place called El Floridita, and these ladies, some of them very wealthy, would come down there. They just broke up with their husband, got divorced, and rather than sitting home and moaning over that he's off with a younger girl, they would come down and they would dance with the Spanish guys, the Latinos, the tangueros, or and that's what tango is about too. And that's definitely salsa. Definitely salsa. It's a cure for heartbreak, because you can't be sad when you're dancing. And especially when you're dancing with a really good dancer and a good handsome guy, and then he takes you by the hand, leads you back, and first of all, he tells you how beautiful you are and how beautiful you smell and how beautiful you look. And so when you finish dancing salsa, because that's how I ended up dancing salsa. My wife was taking ballroom, and I didn't want to do ballroom. And so next thing I know, she's taking salsa. And next thing I know, she's leaving. Where are you going? Oh, I'm going salsa dancing. Dressed like that, little short skirt, sexy, beautiful hair. Oh yeah. And then she invited me to a show that her and her teacher were putting on, and she's just looking at him, like she's never looked at me, but and he dances. Then at the end, he picked her up and turned her upside down, and her dress came down. These beautiful legs are sticking in the air. I went over to him and I said, "Teach me, teach me how to do this." And I've been dancing salsa ever since. Salsa, now tango, tango. And same thing with tango. My wife and I went to Buenos Aires, and because she's been taken from a tango dancer here, really good. She's really good, knows how to follow. All these gorgeous tangueros, are lined up there dancing with her, and I'm sitting on the sidelines, because I wasn't good enough to ask a lady how to dance. So I took my tango lessons today. Oh yeah, dance, man. That's secured the heartbreak. That's secured everything. Wow. I try to tell my sons that they don't listen, they don't. But you can tell people, but they have to learn on their own.
That's right. They'll get it. They'll figure it out. It takes time.
Or not.
It's their choice.
Or not. I don't care. I don't care. I know.
If you could smoke Mary Jane or marijuana or whatever it's been called through the years with one person, dead or alive, that you never got to smoke it with, who would it be?
used to say
Why?
Paul.
And why?
I used to say Paul McCartney, but no, I think I'll take Stephen Hawkins.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why is that? Because he's so
Well,
smart.
yeah, because he was the brain. He figured out the black hole. I want to know what's beyond the black hole.
Wow.
Yeah, and anyway, I would just like to hang with him. I used to hang with Timothy Leary. And I had the best time with Timothy. He would get mad at me because I'm spiritual, and he was the opposite. He was Mr. Scientist. His cure for Earth is getting on a spaceship and finding another Earth. But anyway, I told him. Did I tell him this? I don't know. Anyway, my answer to Tim is that we're on a spaceship, Tim. And the great thing about this spaceship is that you don't need a spacesuit. You just have to be here, and we're traveling through space 1,036 miles an hour. So we're already, and Tim said to me, "Oh, you sound just like John Lennon." That was his comeback. Now, yeah, I guess I would smoke with, yeah, I was going to say Jesus, but not really. Jesus was too pure,
Yeah.
He's too. Oh, by the way, Jesus was a great fitness buff too.
Really?
Yeah.
No joke?
No, serious.
Huh.
Fasting. I've been practicing Ramadan myself.
Really?
Yeah, they fast for a month, but it's easy fast. You just fast all day, and then sundown you can partake. That's the easy fast. No, fasting is so good for you. So good for the soul. The more Jesus fasts, the closer he got to God. And yeah, I've been almost there, but I know I don't have to. I'm not going to go through what Jesus went through, and so I'm going to pass on that part of it. But,
what's the best thing that you've accomplished in your mind?
making my wife a stand-up comedian.
Really? Tell me about that.
Yeah. Well, after Cheech and I broke up, I went out on my own.
Yes.
And I didn't like it. I did not like being alone. Because when Cheech and I were together, we were together. We always had each other. And then when I had nobody, you're helpless. You got no excuse. Someone say, "Hey, let's go to a party." Okay. But now, so I wanted, and I didn't necessarily want Cheech back. I wanted my wife really to come on the road with me, especially, she's such a beautiful tango dancer, or salsa dancer. I didn't want her to leave her at home. And so I asked her to come on the road. She goes, "Nah, I don't want to just sit in the dressing room." I said, "Well," because I was going to Guam. That was it. So I said, then I had an idea. Why don't I put you in the show? And right away, because she was trying to be an actress at the time, she goes, "Oh, okay." And right away she saw it. And so she started off by just introducing me, and then when we last time we worked, she was doing up to 45 minutes by herself in front of Cheech and Chong.
Wow.
And she's pulling it off, and she got a lot of really good, no criticism, no complaints. It's so beautiful. And when you're that beautiful, all you have to do is just really just be yourself, just acknowledge what's going on, and then if you got jokes, and she used to steal my jokes, because when she was just starting out, she would do a little time in front of me, and then I had to watch her, because she would watch my show, and then if I did bits that she could do, she would take them like a wife. And so one time I went to do a bit, and I noticed that, there's something weird, and then I found out that she was doing the bits before me. Yeah. Comics do that all the time. They do that all the time. But she, if she continued, she would have been a big star. Luckily for me and our family, that she would much rather be my wife and mother and be the lady of the house, as opposed to standing backstage waiting to go on, to do comedy in front of strangers. She just loved the Cheech and Chong crowd. They loved her. In fact, I'm going to record our show because we haven't done it for over a year. And I want to record it while we still got the people involved, here. So I'm going to record it, film it and put it on a thing.
Wow. Do you have any hopes of taking like Up in Smoke and doing a remake and casting other people to play you and Cheech?
Not instantly. I wouldn't rule anything like that out. But no, the thing is about Up in Smoke, it was one and done, because it was more than just a movie. It was it's redoing people's image of Latinos, of Chicanos. Yeah. See, we took the Chicano from being a scary killer with a gun or a knife to this beautiful, happy singer, with a kind of a lowrider and so much humor. We made him so lovable, and then his partner, the rich Jewish kid that that needed to get a job by sundown. No, I can't see any remake like that. The thing is, we weren't formula,
Right.
We were one and done. We were that's it. You're not going to get anything else like it ever. That's why I did the movie Still Smoking, because it showed our act, which all the bits that we weren't be able to do anymore because of the movies. Because once you do movies, it's tough going back on stage, because you got it's a whole different rhythm and a whole different thing, and not only that, but there was no need for it, because Cheech and I, neither one of us aspired to be a stand-up comedian, or even a comedy duo. Neither one of us. It just happened, and it happened so serendipity that we just went along with it, and that's where our life's been going. When Cheech and I broke up, I was heartbroken, but then again, I was excited because now I could pursue a stand-up solo career, and which I did. I've done it, almost everything that I've kind of wanted to do, except be the richest man in the world. That's really what I want to do. And the thing is, people can help with that. Oh. And I'm working on well, I'm working on my art. I feel that as an artist, I can create art that is priceless, so priceless that and the way they have crypto art now, you can take everything, like this year's a hand carved necklace pipe. It's a joint holder. Yes. Now I'm working on a way to make this one of my crypto pieces. And I think the way I'm going to do this is to have a picture, take a photo of me with my little, it's a little fish, and document it. And I'm going to have some sort of a chip or something put into it, or some computer number, something to make it one of a kind.
Wow.
And then once it's one of a kind, and then the publicity will hit, and especially what I'm doing with the money, because what I want to do, I want to raise, like I say, $1 trillion to pursue the art. I mean, to pursue the movie thing.
Yes.
And I think the way I can do it. Now, I was thinking of, oil paintings and everything else, but I realized my love is carving, these funny things, or this here, like I carved this. See, this is another, these are all joint holders, because with the pandemic, you don't want to share a joint with anybody else, lips on it. So only my lips touch this, and then you light it. So I do these bongs. This is out of a recycled kombucha bottle, and I had a glass blower do the top, and so this makes a beautiful bong. And I'm going to put different stickers of different companies on there, and then I'm going to have again, these are one of a kind, and I'll probably, some collector is going to want to collect them all. And the thing is about art, it needs a pedigree, and it needs to be one of a kind. It needs to be original, and it needs to be interesting, and it definitely needs to be considered art, And I consider anything that you can't keep your eyes off of as art.
Wow. How do people buy your merchandise?
I'm working on that.
Okay.
I'm working on that now. I guess what I'm going to do is get my own special art, what do you call it, site,
Yes.
I'm going to get my art site. And I think it's going to be the priceless art, priceless art. And I got to be very careful, but the way I ID it, that's I got to figure out, the chip or the computer code or whatever it is to make it one of a kind. And once I get that down, like here's another piece that because I go to thrift stores a lot.
I do too.
And I love thrift stores,
Yeah.
because you can find such treasures there. Like this here, this was once a handle of a salad fork or something, but it's a beautiful African carving.
Wow.
And it's a woman, and I carved her into a pipe. And I love this. And I love this here. This is like what you hang around your neck, but it kind of acts like her hair, like the dreads. I've been carving all my life, and mostly pipes, and so that like this is just a piece of burl, piece of wood. I'm using it now I'm just using it now as an ashtray. Wow. But I love seeing nature. Oh, especially bamboo. Like I find bamboo that's been weathered and been beat and everything else, and then I cut like a piece of. I make walking sticks and stuff like that. But I love the texture of nature.
Yes.
Oh God! And I got photographs of trees. Like I got some. I don't know. They're around here somewhere. But I got because trees are so special. And then I found out that the fungi, the mushrooms. Oh, they're so because they're psychedelic as well, but they got so much. You talk about they communicate with the whole world. Yeah, underneath. See, trees communicate with their roots. You see, that's how they communicate, and that's how you'll see bands of trees all together. Because this is a good place, got water, and they talk. And think what trees do. They're the lungs of for humans. You know, they absorb the carbon dioxide, and they produce oxygen, and the birds and the little critters that live in there, and the bugs and everything. We're living in such a magical place that I don't want to do much more than just find it. Like I found this rock in the desert. Now it's heavy, so it could be a meteorite. You know, it could be a piece of meteorite. It's a piece of
mystical. You have a mystic connection with your higher power, like I do. So I totally get it. I get it.
Yeah. That's why someone said, you know, or I guess I said it, that one thing you can always see that prophets and mystics and, you know, like the Dalai Lamas and all those guys, they have one thing in common. They all love to laugh.
Wow.
We all love to laugh, you know, and that's because it's an expression, it's a relief. It's acknowledging, it's acknowledging beauty, it's acknowledging humor. Because what is humor other than a surrender to the truth? You know, you trip and fall and you look like a fool doing it, and you see it back on camera, and it's funny. You might have hurt yourself, but damn, that was funny. No, I love, period. You know, I think that's it.
Yes. I love you. You've been so magical, and I'm going to go bawl my eyes out now out of joy. Thank you so much for what you
Thank you, dear. Let's do this again anytime.
Okay. All right. Tell your people so that they don't fight me.
Oh no,
I'm back.
No, anytime, dear.
Thank you,
love
Tommy.
You. Bye-bye.
I love you to pieces.